Welcome everyone to the Game Dev Discussion Podcast. This is episode 52. And this week I'm really happy because I've got a really close friend. We've got Michael Kinsey on. How are we doing, dude?
I'm good. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just went for a run and realised my lungs are in far worse condition than I could ever hope. I'm really happy to have you on, man. And, we spent, the past year sitting in voice chat every day at Deco, talking shit, getting to know each other. We have a lot of long, very interesting conversations. So it's going to be cool to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I suppose there's been quite a lot of change and a lot of revelations for you recently. So I just thought it'd be good to establish what's going on right now. So I know you recently left Deco, you're freelancing, and you have joined the DiNusty Empire as a partner, producing learning content on YouTube. Just talk about that a little bit. Just how did that come about? How do you feel about it?
Sure. Well, right now as a freelancer, I'm currently working on Life Beyond by Darewise. They're a French studio. It's a really awesome stylized game. They treat it more as a social experiment, and I'm really enjoying that. Besides that, for the learning content, I think after my ArtStation course, and because I've been training people in Blender so long, that I realized that I just really do enjoy learning. So it just felt very natural.
You do like learning. You taught me Blender. You taught Taylor at Deco Blender. You taught multiple people in the Empire Blender. Obviously, the learning content was great. I think it still is. Or I think it might have just dropped off. It's the strongest performing learning course on ArtStation.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad.
And it's funny, you look at the DiNusty Empire. Lucas has been doing a great job with the Blender stuff as well. Every time one of you guys drop videos, it does extremely, extremely well. But one thing with that, okay, let's talk a bit. Since my main introduction to you was through Deco and Blender, and I think you're known through a lot of the community for being the Blender guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk Blender a little bit.
Sure.
Let's start with the one which confuses people. It confuses me to this day, really. Why did it blow up so much? 2.8 came along, and suddenly it became hot shit, and everyone paid attention. As someone, I know you've used Blender way before 2.8, so your opinion, how did that come from?
I think mostly it just had the wow factor from the new UI changes, and obviously the EV viewport. They have obviously the new PBR renderer, which is really powerful and is great for in production being able to preview your assets whilst you work on them. So say you're doing UVs, you can see the materials in real time whilst you're doing your trims, essentially. So that's really powerful, and the fact that you can mimic shaders from other real-time engines, so you can essentially streamline your workflows. So even though it kind of had, without the real-time viewport, it had a lot of the functionality that it still has now. It obviously the UI wasn't great. It was very cluttered. Also, it used to be a very hotkey heavy program, which means that you had to pretty much relearn everything and what keys to press, and there was a lot of them. So they did a really good job of streamlining that. And because of all of that and the new Blender project that they have going, where they're getting funded by a lot of studios, they ended up being able to make a lot of new powerful features that really help with just standard workflows, or even entirely new features that we haven't really had before. So yeah, it's exciting times. I'm sure that pretty much sums it up, at least in my opinion.
I mean, I quite like the fact it's hot. So I came from Macs, and something that clicked with me when I was learning Blender was, so I don't know I know you use ZBrush as well, but when you use ZBrush, you tend to have a lot of custom menus assigned to hotkeys, because otherwise you end up leaving the workspace to dive through menus to try and find your shit. And I was like, so I've always been Macs, and I was always in menus on the sides doing stuff. And when I was learning Blender, it was very hard because, obviously, like I said, it's very hotkey heavy software, and to get the best out of it, you have to work like that. Yeah. And getting used to, G for move, X, and then I could move on an axis and all that kind of stuff took a lot of adapting. But now I'm like, actually, it's like ZBrush. I never leave my viewport, or very rarely need to leave my viewport, because all of my stuff's on the keyboard. I'm just working in that. That I really like. At first I hated it. I tried to learn Blender, I think 2-3 times, and I was just like, I'll just stick with Macs. And then joined Deco, and you and Taylor were talking about Blender all the time, and I was like, okay. I'm gonna have to just try again. Like, show me what you're doing. Show me what you're doing. And I remember we worked on a project, the mobile game,
Yeah.
and you're just like, oh, by the way, if you just do that little function, and like it'll create all your trim sheets, not trim sheets, sorry, modular kits. And I was like, oh shit, okay, blenders, yeah, that's pretty sick. Um, but with teaching, actually, just on that, how odd has it been for you? Because I mean, look, you're a young guy. You were the main sort of teacher of Blender at Deco, and now Taylor preaches to the high heavens about it,
Yeah.
and so does everyone else. And you did Our Station Learning, and now with the YouTube channel, and also you spent a lot of time just in voice chat on the community, just hey, if you just do this little thing, this, you'll get a really good result, and people appreciate that. You naturally lean towards that. It seems like, is that something early on you knew you were going to build towards, or just it comes naturally to you?
Well, I'm happy teaching Blender or so if someone has a small task, it usually just goes that way. They're like, I can't do X. How do you do X? And then it's just show them how I do it in my usual workflows and where everything is that they need to know how to do that. And I've been using Blender since 2.4, and if you look back to that, it looked like it was out of the 80s, kind of like a movie UI. It was horrible. Because I've been learning since like 2011, and then I've also had the luxury of time to dive into Max, Maya, and Modo.
Hmm.
And I really, because Blender has some overlap with Maya and Modo, Max and Modo, sorry, where Max has a modifier stack. Blender has very freeform modeling tools, whereas Modo also has very freeform modeling tools. So it has decent overlap with them. So transitioning wasn't too hard for me. But I kept coming back to Blender, one, because I'm freelance and it's free. So that just makes
Hmm.
sense. Uh, but two, because it's what I know. And it means that anyone else that needs any help with it, I'm comfortable saying, oh, okay, well, I know how to do that. Uh, Otherwise,
But
I probably wouldn't weigh in too much and try help people if I didn't know that I knew what
well,
I
no,
was
but you
talking
say that. One of the things I appreciated. I don't know whether it's because
about.
you were more comfortable with me. You did weigh in on, like, when we both of us were stuck on something. And it's like, I don't get. So the other day, we're in our group chat with me, you, and Jay Cummings and Patrick, and we're going through UE4.
Hmm.
No one knew the answer. There's an issue in one of the scenes, and we're helping Jay.
Yeah,
No one knew the answer, but you went above and beyond in terms of trying to help, trying to troubleshoot, and you thought about the problem, and you thought higher past what you knew, and you're trying to help fix it. And
yeah,
I think that's what's probably been great. Like I said, we spent nearly every day talking for the past year.
yeah.
Um, it's always appreciated, and I know others have as well. When we're talking and we're struggling, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't really know the problem. Let's see if I can help
I
figure
think
it out.
maybe I'm a natural problem solver. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but if there is a problem that I think that because I also have the issue was with some landscape stuff with in Jay's case the other day.
Mm,
Yeah, I have ever since Unreal 4 became free, I've been diving into it and trying a lot of different things for a very long time, and I've had the opportunity to work on landscapes for particular projects as well.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, in that case, we he ended up solving the issue. It ended up being something that just broke because of an Unreal like engine version change, and it was just
Yeah.
a single tick box. But there was 100 things it could have been,
Mm.
and yeah, uh, so fun problems to solve like that. Uh, I'm always down for that. Um,
So is that why I always thought, so me, okay, this is just context. Me and you are basically on opposite ends of the spectrums as artists.
mhm.
I hate problems. I hate solving problems. I like to have a solution. I'll use the solution. Whereas I've used some of the tools you've made for Substance,
Mhm.
and you're really interested in making these tools, and like, oh, how can I make it better? How can I optimize it? How can I solve this problem? I'm like, just give me the tool and I'll work with that.
Yeah,
We are literally on polar opposites. I mean, I know you go to tech art meetups. I mean, is that something you can see yourself long term being
yeah.
a
So
tech artist? Because that's what is the job, is
I
to
was about
solve
to
problems.
bring that up next because being in this industry, I go to meetups in London, and one of the tech artists there, senior tech artist, I believe at Rocksteady, he said when we were talking about what it is to be what it means to be a tech artist or to work in the creative industries, that we're all creative problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that also directly translates to just traditional uh, 3D art as well. Like if you have an issue with your UVs and you don't know what the issue is, you're going to have to think about what you know and tackle it from different angles until you figure it out and then can fix it in order to finish your project. Um,
You
but
just brought
yeah,
me onto something. Sorry,
I
just on
sorry.
UVs.
Yeah.
That is the only thing I will say about Blender. It's just remind me of a Blender.
Okay.
Fuck,
Definitely, it's definitely
UVs,
the
man.
worst part of Blender, and it's not a good thing if people are like, I want to get into Blender, and you say, okay, well, if you want to do UVs in Blender, you're going to need add-ons.
These
I
plugins,
want a
yeah.
paid add-on. Uh,
Mm,
what is it called? UV Packmaster 2,
yeah,
UV Packmaster Pro.
yeah.
It's one of the best packing algorithms I've used. I know Max and Maya have very good packing algorithms since 2018. It's pretty much it's just on par with that, and I think you can't really get much better than that. But
But here's an observation, and this is out of pure ignorance and just me looking at something like on a bigger picture, and I might be completely wrong here. Is there a concern with Blender is doing a lot of cool stuff?
yeah,
They have took big strides on the sort of high poly sculpting side of things. Obviously, the EV viewport is amazing. The grease pen and the fabric simulation is great. Is there a risk of all these fancy features and then not address and you're not addressing the fundamental things that need fixing? Like it took ages to get the content browser fixed. The file browser still isn't nice to use. The UVs are still really bad to use.
yep.
It's like, is there an element of okay, you focus on these really fancy features that like get lots of retweets and likes, but these fundamental things need addressing really because that's always the crutch of people who don't like Blender. That's the crutch. Oh, I can't use it in production because the UVs are terrible. It's like okay, yeah, obviously you can use add-ons and stuff, but is there a risk? What do you think about that as an idea that they focus on a lot of these like fancy features
I think
rather than
that
fixing
there
fundamentals?
definitely is a risk of that. But each one of those features is a separate developer or team of
Mm-hmm.
developers that want that feature to be in Blender the best that it can. So say like the sculpt branch, which so they have different branches of Blender that people and teams work on, and you can
Mm-hmm.
for yourself make your own branch if you're a developer. Um, and that's all the future features and everything that those teams want to make. But they also have the right click select. If you go Blender community and then right click select, I believe it's blender.community C for community and then right click
Mm-hmm.
select / right click select. It's kind of a democratic way of needing, if you need a fix for Blender, or if you have an issue or you think that there's a simple tool that could be made, you can make a post on it. It's just a forum, and then any devs that see that, because Blender's open source, anyone can find that, and if they're a developer, they can address that issue if they deem it worthy, essentially. So you're kind of praying to the developer gods, but Blender is quite quick to fix things and address things because of that. I guess fluid nature of being able to find an issue and or need a new feature, and then if your feature is good enough, someone will make it, or you can make
So,
it yourself. It's all open source.
so why do you think it's taken so like considering it has always been the big glaring issue of Blender? Do you think it's a case it's just not fun to work on, so developers don't want to invest their time into it? Like, is it such a big problem that it's like we can't even begin to touch this? Like, why do you think it hasn't been addressed yet? In your personal opinion?
So the UVs you're talking about
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Um, so we have got big changes. I feel like I'm defending Blender here, like it's
No, no,
attacking
no.
it. I
That's
hope
fine.
it doesn't sound that way. But so we've recently had UDIMs, now multi-user editing, so you can have multiple objects and be able to uh, edit them as separate objects. But when you want to UV them, if you want to UV them all to one UV sheet, you can select all the objects you want and then UV them together, which is really cool. Something that 2.7 didn't have at all. You'd have to combine your assets and then UV them, then break them apart again and do all your naming, which is just a pain. So
Yeah.
there has been huge changes that are really useful, but I think uh, I do. based on what you're saying, it probably is true that they are ignoring some of the smaller things, like just easy and simple ways to straighten out a UV island
Yeah,
to
because we have to
align
use
it to a
UV
screen.
squares, don't we? You show me that
Yep.
plugin, like, and it's like
Yeah.
I feel like this. When I come from Max, which has obviously it has really good UV tools, but it's like I want to straighten my UVs, and it's like I asked you, I was like, dude, how can I straighten this island? This is annoying. So, probably best to use this tool. It's really good. As I click, it fixes it. It's like, okay, yeah, but I had to download something, and like obviously, we don't mind that. Most developers and artists don't mind downloading the plugin, but it's still a barrier of entry to use something that you feel like it's a basic tool.
Yep. No,
What? No, go on.
I think that definitely any it won't be complex to make. All of Blender's code is open source, or even the developers at Blender for them to introduce themselves, and hopefully they do in a future release. Or even the UV squares add-on, if they can go to the developer of that, say, hey, uh, here's some money, can we implement your add-on into Blender
Mm-hmm.
official? And then everyone just gets it as part of Blender when you just download it.
That'd be
Um,
nice.
yeah, and that has happened before with specific add-ons that are very useful. So that could happen, or they could introduce it themselves. I know Blender doesn't like undercutting add-on makers for Blender, so I'm not sure if that has something to do with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I can imagine if you've got someone like you, the guy behind UV Pack Master, and I imagine he does very well for himself if it's the go-to like packing option for Blender.
yep.
It it's very difficult to put a price on. Hey, can we have this add-on? Well, hold on, I'm doing really well with this, and I made this great tool, and people are buying it.
Yeah.
No, like it. There is that element of it, which I imagine is a bit of a nightmare for them to navigate. You mentioned, you sound like you're defending Blender.
Yeah.
Now, I think the reason I appreciate all the sort of things you were teaching me and stuff when we were at Deco was you gave viable options to most. It wasn't like Blender's the savior of all of mankind and it's the messiah. It was like, you could do this in Max as well, though. So what things? I didn't want. So as a Max user, the one thing I miss is the edit poly modifier. That
Yeah.
was like,
I
it's so good.
That's the biggest thing I missed from Max 2. I wish Blender had something as powerful as that.
What other stuff? What other tools? We've got Modo, Maya, and Max. So what things are they doing that you're like, okay, to be fair, if although you have the inconvenience of switching software, but just for
Hmm.
argument's sake, what do they do better that what you prefer
Well,
to
we've
Blender?
already covered the UVs, but that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, but besides that, Blender's just got pie menus, and I know some really talented developers who are making free pie menu add-ons, which are great. Uh, so that's what you can get from Modo. I couldn't get around to using pie menus. I think I'm just too hotkey heavy from my Max and Blender days, but
hmm
I know a lot of people use pie menus, and when I watch people use pie menus and speed that they can use pie menus at,
Yeah,
so
good.
they're
I'm a pie
definitely,
menu guy.
yeah, definitely useful. From Max, the edit poly modifier, and maybe a few of the so the Blender modifier stack isn't very customizable.
hmm
It's a little bit more difficult to make your own modifiers than it is in Max.
hmm
Uh, so that being streamlined a little bit so people can make and implement the modifiers based off of add-ons would be great. Because then we could, like quad chamfer, someone can make their own bevel modifier that is quad chamfer that is uh, can be used in Blender. Not that Blender's bevel modifier isn't great, but uh, anything where anyone sees that something could be improved, they can.
Yeah.
All of the add-on stuff for Blender is Python based, so any Python scripters out there can have a field day.
I imagine that is a lot of room as well for collaboration between, I guess, artists or like people who use the software on a top sort of the surface level and developers to collaborate and create things like, hey, I need this tool. I'm not a programmer, I can't do this, but hey, this is a great idea. We should work together. I
Yeah,
suppose that opens a lot of room for that sort of stuff to happen as well, which is great. Like, I always encourage any type of collaboration, especially cross discipline.
definitely, and gives everyone a lot of opportunities to learn. Because I love the technical side of art as well as the art side of art, and maybe that's why my career development is quite slow because I'm trying to learn twice as much. Uh,
Well, okay, good segue, Michael. You didn't even
okay,
mean that.
right.
So, speaking on careers, we were both leads at Deco.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I'm now a counterplayer doing. I'm a senior enrollment artist.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But I'm loving it. It's like a breath of fresh air. And I know we've spoken a lot in the past about this, but I think you're in a similar boat. I feel like as if I may have been a lead too early in my career, and that's like an active choice on my part. That's of both a principal at Life 5 and lead at Deco,
Hmm.
and I don't think. Well, like I said, I feel like it was too early, and it
Yeah.
had an interesting effect on my career. Like it made me think about things from a different perspective. And especially now I'm a production artist, I'm having to like switch back into production art mode rather than worrying about managerial stuff, which is kind of weird. Um, but what about you? So with you, do you feel like you that might be the case for you? Is that something you feel like you experienced, or am I on here?
No, definitely. I think if you push things too far early in your career, you really risk burning out. And uh, if I mean, having the opportunity to be a lead early in your career could be amazing, and the what you can learn is great because you're working with teams. It's kind of like a thrown in the deep end situation. You either swim or drown in that sense. Um,
But so on that though, don't you think? So this is how this is. I know this affected me quite a lot. It was a really hard thing to get over myself with.
mhm.
When you're a lead, you set yourself expectations as a lead.
Yes.
So when you go on to look for a new work, you're like, okay, well, I'm a lead here, so I want to be a lead elsewhere. And it's like, as a lead, it's very hard. Sometimes you're doing mostly managerial stuff, so your portfolio isn't growing the same way that a production artist is.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
because you don't have the time or the energy to really put
exactly.
into. Yeah,
And I know that was
I've
weird to
experienced
get
that
over.
firsthand. Yeah.
So what like what was that like? Well, how I imagine it wasn't like something that you just sort of clicked and knew straight away. Like
No, and
talk me through
I
that
don't.
process.
I know people like Taylor Brandenberger who are quite natural leaders. You just give him something and a team, and he will figure out the best way and most efficient way, and he's very quick to adapt.
Hmm.
Uh, because I like not acting on something until I know I know enough about it in order to minimize, I guess, potential damages.
Hmm.
Um, I'm much slower at that kind of acting, which
Hmm.
probably isn't a great uh, thing as a lead. Um, but having the experience as a lead, the amount I was able to learn over such a short time was amazing, and the types of projects I was able to work on was also uh, I've been able to touch a lot of areas of the industry. So it's all about taking on what you can manage and not taking on too much at once, because definitely that can lead to some pretty bad burnout. And when people are relying on you, that's not good. So
I mean, with that though, with your
mhm.
development, I know we had this conversation recently about like portfolio, and it's like I know you, I've spoken to you, I worked with you for the past like year and a bit, and
Mhm.
I know how good an artist you are.
Oh, thanks.
Super strong. Like, no, honestly, this isn't just flattery. Like, and it's not because we're friends. Like, I mean, you're one of the stronger. You know more about most stuff than I do as well. Put it that way. Any problem I have, you're the guy I come to talk to. Now, problem with that is, and I know I've said this, I know we've had this conversation like in private, so I don't anyone listen. I'm not coming across as a dick intentionally, but your portfolio doesn't reflect your ability. Apart from your last recent piece, the work you did with Deco on that gym scene was incredible, and like that's the artist I know, and it's the
Okay.
artist I've known for the past year is that scene.
Yeah.
How is that part of the challenge now where you moved on from Deco? Is like okay, I need to have because you're only as good as your portfolio, I guess, to the public, to the wider
Yeah,
public.
especially when you're looking for work, you're only as good as your portfolio. And when you're in focusing on your career and applying at studios, or you're looking for work anywhere, then yeah, 100%. You're only as good as your work.
So what's the
Maybe.
set? What's the steps forward going forward then? Like, what is it in? We're looking at your portfolio now, and anyone listening, I know this is an audio podcast, but you can go to Michael's Art Station. He's also on the Art Station Learning, so you can find him through there too. But what is it like as an artist? You look at this critically. What is it
Yeah.
like? Okay, what am I not telling people about me? What's going through your head when you're trying to like fix this problem?
I suppose that's the best way to put it, to be honest. What I'm not telling people about me is one, the technical side we talked about a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
The add-ons and things that I've made for different software packages like Painter, and I'm currently working on an add-on for Blender. So I'm actually getting more into the technical side now. I'm learning Python to try and make an add-on to make people's trim workflows much more efficient. So things like that,
Ah,
I want to
okay.
be able to show and deliver, and just allow people to download and use to show that I can help people make their workflows better. Um, and then also, I want to start making art, particularly I enjoy again. I just love finding awesome concepts on ArtStation, and I when I see something like when we're talking with problems earlier, if there's a problem I come across, I kind of can obsess a little bit. I won't stop thinking about that problem until I've thought of all the different ways I could deal with it. So I think that that's why when I'm in chats with people and they have an issue, I jump on those, and maybe to my a little bit against my health with that, because I need to figure out when to stop and let people deal with their own issues sometimes. But yeah, if
Um,
there's a challenge,
well, you have quite a hands-off teaching approach. I mean, when you've taught me in the past, you let people dabble and fumble around and get it wrong. And like one, I think this is why I've always enjoyed, being taught by you with things. Is that it isn't a do this and do that. You don't say do these 6 steps and just do these 6 steps, 6 steps. You discuss each point. When we do the simulation thing
yeah,
with the material, it weren't just that button, that button, that button, that button, done. It was like each step. Like we had a conversation, we were talking about it and what you could do and its alternatives, and if you tweak this, and it'll let you achieve this other thing which you're not even doing, but it's relevant. And it was a far more is much more of a conversational type of teaching rather than just a point A, point B, point C, point D, done. And I think that's why I think this would be like just guessing, but when I've seen you interact with people in the community, it's been that type of thing. Is that people they want to get more out of you, and it's quite funny to watch when I know, because I know you met a lot of people recently and in chat, and I'm sat there quietly just observing. Like, I know what you're like, so it's funny watching them talk to you, and they're doing the exact same thing I've done with you over the years. In that, oh, that's a cool idea. Like just a little bit more information, and they got you on like a lead, and like, come on, just a little bit more, please. It's quite entertaining to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. I fall down rabbit holes easily, so I'm also glad that you're uh, dragging on the not dragging, you're pushing on the conversations a lot. Because if we get stuck at one point, I could probably talk about it forever. Um,
Yeah. Well, the problem is that I like if everyone listening. We sit and chat all day, every day for like a year. And we never got bored. I mean, there was some times where we would go quiet and work, and then one of us just come up with an idea. We'd just start discussing an idea for like an hour, and then it's like, maybe we should get back to work. It's like, yeah, maybe we should. Actually, speaking on this remote stuff,
yeah.
um, freelance.
Okay.
Um, I've had people like Josh Lynch on and others, and we've talked about burnout. We always talk about burnout and like avoiding it and dealing with it.
Yeah.
Now, as a freelancer, it's like what I know you've experienced this. Like, let's talk a bit about working through burnout, because you don't always have the option of just, oh, well, I'm burnt out and I need to chill on my personal life. Like, no, this is professional work. You can't just leave the office like you do with a studio job. So let's
Yeah.
talk a bit about burnout at home as a freelancer. Yeah, I know you went through it. Let's just dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially being early on in my career and the types of tasks and projects I've had to work on, and the fact that when I get given a problem, I can't stop thinking about it. I do probably obsess a bit too much. I have a very hard time turning off and shutting down for the betterment of my health, I guess.
mhm.
And that definitely does lead to burnout. So I always found at the end of every project that I had done, after it's all submitted and everyone's happy and it's good, I was out for the count for maybe a week. And that's all on me, because I should be better at managing my time.
Mhm.
I should be able to turn off at 5 o'clock. Uh, but obviously, working with clients that are on the other side of the world, different time zones, you can also easily fall into a really messed up uh, sleep cycle and be working late, and uh, whatever you think you need to do to get a project done, which
Hmm.
also isn't good for your health. So I do love freelance, uh, and I've had a really good time with freelance, and the freelance projects I'm working on now are great. Um, but I would probably say this also ties into the leading early in your career. Is uh, it's probably best to enjoy the art that you're doing early in your career, and then once you get experience, work your way up to leading. And this ties into freelance because uh, I would also recommend to people starting out, if you get freelance work, that's great. Don't take on too much at once. And in addition to that, uh, it's probably better for people that have established themselves in the industry to go and do freelance gigs, and they'll get the freelance gigs at bigger studios because they've been in the industry long enough uh, to know to a very high level how to manage their time. Time management is a huge part of freelance because you have to manage your time, you have to do your own finances, you have to do the job at whatever level it is, be it junior, mid, senior, lead. So it does involve a lot. And yeah, early on in your career, I probably would advise against anyone going
Do you
into
think,
freelance or stepping up too quick.
question though, is it also about managing expectations? And what I mean by that is, and this has been like a bit of an adjustment period for me with our station. I think this might tie to what you're on about, in that when you're more experienced, you know the value of your health, you know the way things go,
Mhm.
and you're happy saying, you know what, um, this will be done like in X amount of time because of time zone differences and because of like these very obvious and fair reasons. Whereas early on, you might be more inclined to go above and beyond the Call of Duty to, get it done, meet the client's deadlines, no matter what risk to your own health and mental well being.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that a
definitely.
combination of it as well? But because you're so early on in your career that it was like, oh, I've got to do this because the client's asked for it, and like that, obviously, client's God in this situation, and I have to get this done. Like, is that a combination of it as well?
Yeah, you have to understand the value of your own time. And understanding that very early on is going to be difficult because you haven't worked enough to know the value of your own time. So
Yeah.
it's a tricky situation to be in for anyone. Thinking about it now, I'm still not too sure exactly how I feel in it all because also starting off, I consider myself a failed animator because when I first wanted to get into the industry, I wanted to do animation, and then
Hmm.
that I couldn't render my animations or characters that I rigged and small animations that I did because I didn't have the hardware back then. So I started looking into real time, and that's what led me to game art eventually, and then
Hmm.
environments to put the characters in, and that's what led me to environments. So I consider myself a failed animator, but when I wanted to do that, I wanted to learn all of those and all the steps so that I can do my own full art productions or games. So when you first start off, you want to like be the CEO and the idea guy for an entire company and make the best game ever. And then when you actually get to it, you're like, oh shit, I need to. Sorry, I didn't ask if I can. Can we swear on the podcast?
You not heard me like deaf and blind for the past like we
All
go
right,
for half an hour, dude.
I'm
I've
just
been
checking.
swearing so much.
Okay,
No, I'm
uh,
allowed to. You're not.
maybe I'm desensitized to it.
True. True.
Uh, but yeah, it can be. It's kind of like a lesson in you have to be more humble. It's a lesson in humility. Like you get stripped down to being, oh shit, I need to specialize. And then once you've specialized and you've done those lower level roles, specializing like junior, mid level, uh, and you understand more about other areas of the industry whilst you're doing that, then you start stepping up and you should also have a better, that's kind of like the standard, everyone in the industry. Whereas I kind of worked backwards from that, going straight to freelance and then very quickly at Decagon, going to being a lead. Um,
Hmm.
which again, I do not regret at all. It was an amazing experience. Uh, but if you're uh, not a natural manager and it's early in your career, you can burn out for one. And two, you might find yourself not enjoying things if you're not doing what you enjoy. So, I guess it
Yeah.
ties into the portfolio talk earlier. I just want to do more of what I enjoy again.
It's interesting you mentioned the lesson in humility thing, because it's like, until, like, I think it's when I've been happiest as an artist, and it's been these past like year and a half, just being okay with not with what you're not good at.
Hmm.
And with that, it means then I'm far more happy talking to people about, things I'm having trouble with. Like, I know I'm not the best okay, like best Blender user, when I was learning it. You know what? Instead of sitting here and completely killing myself trying to learn Blender and struggling, I can just ask Michael. He's sat right there. I can speak if I was struggling with hard surface stuff and modeling stuff. I'd go speak to Rick. Like, he
Yeah,
is, one of the premier modeling artists. Like, he's his weapon art, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm completely happy talking to him, even though he's younger, even though like all that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter, because I'm not a weapons artist. I'm not a hard surface artist. I'll go talk to these people. I'm okay with being a novice in that situation. And I think that's a kind of that you had to go straight to be, you're treated as the expert when you're a lead as well. Like, everyone wants you to have all the answers. And when you don't, you have to go figure out the answers. And
yeah,
maybe that's why it's easier as you're like later on as your career, or you have a bit more experience in you about, you've had the chance to see the problems and go through production and meet problems. So that when you're a leader, you're like, oh, this problem comes up. Like, yeah, I dealt with this when I was an artist. Yeah, you do this, and this. Um, I think that's a big part of it. And I think one thing with freelancing though, is it kind of the nature of the beast that you don't get, like, by doing freelance, you're basically doing two things. You're accepting the fact that you have very little kind of say on what you get to do, in a sense of, you need to take work, you need to pay the bills.
yeah.
And with that, it's a trade off. You get freelancers get paid way more money on, compared to studio work, and that's because you have to find your own work, you have no holidays, your health
You have to,
benefits, all that's not there.
yeah, you have to pay for all your own software, your hardware.
Exactly.
It's all on you. Yeah,
Whereas in studio art, it's kind of like, okay, if you go to the studio, you've accepted that you're happy to work on that project, like, and you know what you're
yeah.
getting into.
On the rate and agreement that you've already
Yeah.
decided. Yeah,
Um, is that part of the problem with freelance then? Is a case of, although you have for people like, big names like, I don't know, Raf Grassetti, I imagine he could do whatever he wanted. If he wants to do, um, a very specific type of character, I'm sure he has people coming to him who want that specific type of character. But people early on in their careers, it's like, you don't get to be picky on what freelance projects you pick up. You pick up what you can get.
yeah.
And is that part of the problem as well then, that, you don't get to do what you enjoy because you're just doing what you get what you can get? Is that part of it?
Um, so freelance side of things right now, the current project I'm working on, I'm just working as a environment artist, senior environment artist, and I'm loving that because I'm just doing direct art. So I don't think that that has too much of a how do I word it? Sorry, too much control over whether you'll enjoy your work or not as a freelancer, because you also have the control over what kind of work you do and don't accept as a freelancer. You're your business at that point,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have that luxury at a studio, but you lack the ability to feel like you're part of that project. Whereas at a studio, you're part of that project. You and
Mm,
everyone on that team, you're working towards that one goal, which to the best of your ability to make the best product possible. Um, and I think that that disconnect is why some outsourcing and freelancers, uh, even though they do amazing work, can feel very disconnected from the projects they're working on.
completely agree. Yeah, I have to. Yeah, since starting a counterplay, it's been like, like I said, you're part of a team, and you feel like you have an ownership over the stuff, and it's like, you get to be proud of everything. Like, as an outsourced studio, so say for example, I make a set of weapons for Call of Duty. I made like I don't know, the M4 variants. It's very hard to take ownership and pride in the whole game of Call of Duty. It's like, you made one very small piece. It's very difficult to be like sharing trailers for Call of Duty. Be like, hey, I worked on this. It's like, you worked on this tiny thing, and then that's not me invalidating like outsourced studios or like freelancers, but that's the nature of the beast. You
Mhm.
get to work on all the games, but like, it's hard to take pride and ownership over a game. Whereas like with counterplay, it's like, everything they're doing, and I've seen what all the teams are doing and the great work they're doing, and I'm like, I'm proud to say I'm working on this title, and this is like my team that I'm working with.
Yeah,
That ownership, and I don't know if it's because I come from a sporting background and like team sport, where like I like that team side of things. But that, I definitely feel like there was a. It's easy to be disconnected from stuff. But then again, I suppose with outsourced studios, the team is just a company getting more work. I guess is the team aspect for an outsourced studio. Freelancer on your own is a bit different. That's yeah,
Yeah.
you're kind of in the wilderness on your own. But what about? This is gonna be an interesting one.
That's not a good laugh.
Okay, no. This is an interesting one. So you said you're as a freelancer,
Mhm.
you are your own business. Now, I know the thing you struggle with the most, which is promoting yourself, which I have zero problem. I am the most audacious, like
Yeah.
in your face person with the way I promote my art and my brand and stuff I'm doing. Um, but it's something you've myself and Hannah, we're in a group chat and we talk about how we're going to promote our art, like social media icons, how does it
Yeah.
look, how do we do this, and you've said multiple times like, I wish I could think like that, or like, I
Yeah.
wish I did that more. What is it you struggle with it? Like, what part of that aspect is it that you either find unsavory or you don't like or you
Oh,
don't
man, I feel
connect
like I'm
with?
in an interview now.
Sorry, man.
I think it doesn't matter how much you promote yourself, that if someone is as good as, if someone is good, their work should speak for themselves. But you and Hannah have come around to very much changing my mind in that. You also, if, especially if you're freelance or if you want to treat your career more like a career and be on top of things, you want to control public perception, you want to, uh, I guess that sounds a little bit too corporate, but that's the best way I can word it. You want to have the widest visibility possible. Um, that just it makes sense. I just never really thought that way because everything I do, I'm trying to be any model I do, I'm doing it to the best of my ability. So by the time that I'm done, whatever I've learned from it, I try to take that and be okay, how could I have improved? So that's why I never really feel happy with something that I've completed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably one of the reasons why I don't show a lot of stuff I have completed,
But
which is probably wrong because you need to show progress and you need to show work that you've done, especially when you're wanting to have that visibility in the industry, I guess.
yeah, because the thing is as well, like nothing. So I've said this like to many people, like nothing would ever trump quality. Like you could have the best PR, marketing, social media, like it gets in front of hundreds of people. That will never trump just quality work. And I mean, this is a great testament to this is Dom Marriott's. He did some like Thai boxing gloves, and like Dom
Yeah,
isn't like
those
a
looked
super.
amazing.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
killed it. It's
I'll
like,
take
and it's
to
one of the nicest assets. And it's like that isn't he isn't like a crazy big name in the industry yet. Yet it blew up on a big scale because the fact of the matter is, good quality will get endorsed, supported, shared.
yeah.
But with that, then it's like okay, good quality gets you like 80% of the way. But if you like promote yourself well, oh, I've just gained an extra 5% on top of that, and then like you share it around in a clever way. Okay, I've just put another 5% on top of that. Like
I
it's I don't.
agree, especially learning from you and Hannah, a few other very well known people in the industry as well. Just watching them as they post their stuff and they post frequently. And I've also read Show Your Work. I forget the name of the author. Sorry, I'm not giving him great credit. He also did Still Like an Artist, which is
Mm-hmm.
a really good book that I also recommend for anyone starting out, um, or any level really. Uh, yeah, he talks about that a lot about uh, being able to share frequently and to get a group of people that are all similar to you in the similar field to get feedback and to also have them help share your work. You share their work. It's kind of it helps to and once you get a following, once you share that following will only grow every time you share. Just
Mm-hmm.
obviously don't spam. So
Yeah.
it does make the most sense to aim to be the best artist possible and but also and also show if you're not happy with work, still show the work, but you can also explain why you're not happy with it. Probably not good advice for your portfolio, but maybe on social media,
Oh,
Twitter
not
or something.
necessarily. Like I think it's about being. It's like just it's having a justification for what you do. Like I mean, I I've had multiple people say to me that they don't like my our gas scene. And like, it's a bit like, it's not your best scene. I'm like, yeah, but all I cared about was the snow shader. Like, I know the rest of it is not great. It's like I finish the snow shader, the rest of it is like I draw a line in the sand and move on. And I've been very much like that. Like every single one of my pieces, I could probably get like another 50% out of it. But then I'm like, I'm going past what I originally wanted to do, and I could spend that 50% starting the next thing. But on that thing of the circle of like the this having a tight knit group of like minded people, I think the other thing as well, which is, and I think it's we're quite lucky because we're in a lot of. I think both me and you are in a couple of healthy circles of people who help and support us.
Yeah.
Is that there's never a expectation, and no one in our groups I feel like do anything in in expectation. Like for example, if I shared one of your pieces of work, I would have then sit there and wait, stare at you when I post my piece and wait for you to share it.
Yeah.
It's like no,
It's not
we
like
do
you're
these things.
PMing everyone and saying, please share my work. I
Yeah,
like it.
but also when we do it, we're not. I'm not sharing your stuff because I'm like hoping I want to get something back of it in the long term. I'm sharing it because it's good work. Like and having a support circle like that who just want to see the best for you, and like that transcends as well. Like if I post something bad, and I have done that in the past where I've had to take something down because both yourself and the people in the group are like, that isn't really that's not your standard.
Yeah.
So I've had to take stuff down in the past for that because I could rush sometimes. Them types of groups of people, I feel like, are the reason I've developed as an artist. Whether that be us guys in a deco chat, I know we have a chat with me and Hannah and a couple of others. All the guys from the Midlands. We them groups of people are what I think have aided my development the most, and I think that's their own development. The
Yeah.
communities are great, like DiNusty and Experience Points and places like this are great, but real focused support from friends who are happy to tell you when you're doing something wrong as well as support you when you do something good
Yeah.
is so invaluable.
I think I've talked about this with a few people in the past too, but I think that that's one of the best things about working in the games industry or any of the creative industries, at least the ones I've had the privilege to at least touch, is that everyone is technically competing at the end of the day. But I've had friends that we've both applied for the same job, and they got it over me, but they had the stronger portfolio at the time. And from that experience, I'm happy that they got the job. I uh, know that he like deserved the job better, uh, and I forgot my point. Oh, but like knowing him in that job is also good for me. But also,
Yeah,
I get the feedback from not getting that job as well of oh, this is how you can improve, and that helps me in the long run. And I think the best way to describe it is kind of it's almost like competitive altruism. Uh, you're happy even though you're competing. Essentially, everyone's competing for positions in the industry. You're happy to still help them and give them advice on a piece, or say, oh, okay, maybe the dark values in that are too dark and it's completely bottoming out. Light that up, make it lighter, or add a fill light here to call out to light up the front, and a side light to call out the edges, kind of thing.
you
Um,
know what? It's interesting you say because it's literally the exact same. I don't know why I find so many parallels between like our industry and sport.
mhm.
And it's like in rugby, for example, in my position, I played prop in rugby league, and it's like you can only have two props on the field and then like two on the bench. But you in your squad, you had like 8, 9 props,
Yeah,
and it'd be like we're competing every training session. We're competing to one up each other to show ourselves in the best light to get picked for the squad on the weekend.
yeah,
And but when you didn't, as soon as like that's it, the final squad was released and you weren't in it, it was like right, my job now is to support this guy and be happy. I'm genuinely happy. I had one of my best friends I grew up playing at Coventry Bears with. He got picked ahead of me quite often. He was a much better athlete, and every time it's like, you know what, happy for you. I know what I need to work on, and it was would support each other. And it's the exact same in this industry. Like you said, the analogy you just given, it's like we are all competing. Like I'm competing with you, I'm competing with all the guys. Like we all are environment artists, bar Rick because he's a weirdo and likes weapons. Um, but we're all competing in the same space. And even though one of us gets a job over the other guy, or even if we're not competing on for the same job, we're happy that they got the opportunity
yeah,
and we learn from that, us not getting it. and it's the exact same in sport. It's the exact same in, well, team sport, I should say. Um, it's weird because you've got that plus the fact that the games industry is the most open sharing resource sort of place I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know, in sport, if you don't have that, you don't share secrets and you don't share like little things you do to get an edge on each other.
On
You
the
share. Go on.
subject of like how open the industry is, that further kind of shows how uh, altruistic the industry is under the hood, kind of thing.
Mm,
Everyone, I know how to do this, whereas before a lot of people or studios were like, let's keep that to ourselves. We could
yeah,
so it has value. Now people are seeing the value in making those courses, and a lot of the time people just give it away for free. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching so much. Is uh, I'm helping everyone in the industry, or everyone who I teach, get to a higher level and understand the software better, which at the end of the day makes the software better because there's more better people using it and wanting that, wanting the software to get better and requesting features, or they'll know someone who's technical that'll make the feature themselves. And one of the reasons why in Designer, uh, I don't just treat it like a fancy material creation tool. I use it to make tools to make texturing better, and have done many times for Pipeline, especially you've used a few when we work together.
yeah, and
So
taking
making
stuff into
things like
Painter and
that,
stuff.
and making things like that I'm going to be giving away for free over the coming months as well. So just doing things like that to try and help the industry get better also helps me get better in the long run, because that comes back around. The bar in the industry gets higher.
Yeah, you push the standards because it's like it's okay. One person releases, so like you start in day one, people are paying for materials like basic brick textures, and then it's like, oh, actually, people are giving away tutorials now for free. Okay, well, I can't charge for this very simple material now. I have to up my standards, and if I want to charge for it, and it's like, oh, if he's giving away free stuff and like it's of that standard, I need to. And you got this one-upmanship almost. Like if you look at material art from like 2015, the
It's
design art
exploded.
material art.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like back then it was very basic. It was like, hey, here's a cool concrete texture. Here's a brick wall. Here's some slabs. Now
Crazy
you've
bump
got Eric
tutorials.
Wiley. I'm so glad I never used Crazy Bump, and I was never part of that like trend. But it's great to see that like back then it was like people pay a lot for just like a brick texture. Now you look at like an Eric Wiley's tutorial, the fucking tentacles, octopus tentacles and stuff, and it's like, can you imagine that in 2015? No, no way. Like that is not anywhere in
I think if
sight in
someone did that in
2015.
2015, that one, have to do it in ZBrush, it'd be a one-off, and two, it would probably be like 1,000 likes. Like they would get so much attention if they were able to
Yeah,
reach that quality.
it's a very. I don't, I like the fact I see it. Like I see you see murmurs sometimes of people like, oh, like I can't sell this now because X person's giving that thing away for free, and it's like, yeah, but you can also get better and like grow as an artist. You know, that's the alternative. And I've seen people do that. I've seen like so many artists now like up their game because they're like they want to compete in that space,
Yeah,
and it's great to see because then the other people have to compete. It's just like I said, you just keep one upping each other.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see.
I'm glad it went that way, because when I was first starting off, there was, to learn Blender was a chore, because the free videos that are around, and and that's what got me into 3D. Um, there wasn't much at all, and then if I wanted to get into engines, Unity didn't even support like real time lighting, except for like a single point light with no soft shadows or something like that, or a directional light. Sorry. Um, so there wasn't many resources to get into game art at all, and you'd have to dive through forums to like maybe find a good forum post that breaks things down. But now Polycount has amazing resources. There's a million things on Gumroad, a million
Mm,
free things on YouTube, and then full-on courses that are almost essentially masterclass courses. Like on ArtStation, for example, there's so
yeah,
much
for like
content out there. So
$3 a month
yeah,
for all of it. It's great. Um, Dude, we've been going. this is why I like talking to you, man. Like, I know it's not funny. It's like a broken record. Every time I speak to people, I'm like, "Oh, what did you know?" It feels like I've been talking for 10 minutes. It's been like an hour.
yeah,
Um, Mike, I know you're one of the busiest guys I know. Like, although you'd like to be humble and try and say you're not that busy, you are maybe too busy sometimes, and that's come from me.
A little bit, yeah.
Um, but I really appreciate coming on. I think this has been a real good chat because I think a lot of the stuff we talk about behind closed doors
Mhm.
are really interesting conversations. And I think a lot of people are going to listen to this and probably get a lot of value of what you had to say. So yeah, dude, thank you so much. I'm thinking you're gonna have to come back on as well. Like once
Yeah, I'd love
you
to.
go some more Empire stuff, I want to have like an Empire round table with just all of
Yeah,
us
that'd be great. There'd be a
partners.
big blender circle jerk kind
Yeah,
of.
Jeremy's streaming it, you two twitching it, and then me just like, yeah, I use it. But guys, everyone who's listening, remember to like, share the podcast because it helps more people hear some of the great stuff people like Minecraft to say. And there is also Patreon, which is linked below. Any support we get on Patreon, it goes straight back into the podcast to up the production quality and just make it a better podcast. So we're gonna wrap up. I'll see you guys next week. Michael, cheers for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.